What is up, guys? My name is Darian Riley, and this is the Ordinary Christian Podcast. This is episode 3, and it's called The Ordinary Walk. We are shooting in the library. Haven't really had a place to shoot, man, and I'm trying to figure out where to. And I knew that they had some little rooms like this here, and so for now, I may be just shooting just in the library because I don't have anywhere else to do it, but I know I want to produce these and bring them to the world and show people who live ordinary lives that they can be impactful and change the world just as much as anybody else can. So like I said, this is about the ordinary walk. How is your relationship with Christ? How is it? What does your relationship with Christ look like? Do you read? Do you spend time with Christ every day? If you don't, that's a problem. If you're not going to church, that is a problem. It's not, I'm not going to say it's essential to salvation, but it is so important because if you don't have godly men and women to help you with advice, to help you when you struggle, to help you when you doubt, to help you, answer questions that you don't know the answers to, like, if you don't have godly people building you up and edifying you, that is a problem. People can say, well, I have friends, but it's like, worldly advice that they can give you is nowhere near the level of godly advice that godly men and women can give you. And it won't bear the same fruit. So to me, that's of utmost importance. And I would say even biblically shows how much people gather together and have people they can rely on and trust and talk to when they were going through things. So your relationship with Christ. I saw a quote, and I actually quoted it in my last pod too, but it said that if you are not radically different after coming to Christ or coming in contact with Christ, it begs the question, was it him that you came in contact with? Boy, that is deep. That is so deep. Because there are so many people who say that they come to Christ, but they just live the same life that they live, or say that they're a Christian, but they live the same life and they have no change. There are some people who are born with it. There are some people who, born with it is probably a bad term, but we're raised in church. We're raised and they're like, hey, I got saved when I was 7. I grew up in church. My dad was a pastor, whatever it is. Hey, dope. I'm not saying you don't have problems, and I'm not saying you don't have whatever, but man, that sounds great. Like, I wish, if I would have got saved at an early age, I wouldn't have went to prison. So, I can enjoy I can enjoy my testimony and know that God will use it mightily, but God, it was hard. It was hard to go through. So, say, okay, if I am the same person, before I went to prison, before I found Christ, and then I accept Christ and I get out. If I'm that same person, then that's a problem. And to me, you should be questioning your salvation and be working out your salvation with fear and trembling. That's Bible for you, by the way. But you should see a transformation in your life. You should see, you talking different. You should see you thinking different. I don't laugh at the same things I used to laugh at or talk the same way I used to talk. I don't listen to the same music I used to listen to. I know I've smelled weed since I've been out. I'm not, hating on weed or people who smoke weed, but God, I smell it burning and it makes me sick. And maybe that's because I think about my life before I went, and so I attribute it to all of that. I don't know, but it makes me sick, and I know I literally think different, far different than I ever thought before Christ. And that's not to say that I don't fail and don't think, bad things or negative things at times, but it is night and day difference from what Christ has done for me. And I'm not going to say your life will be radically different at first, because it wasn't for me. It's going to be an everyday process. It's going to be, I got saved, 7 years ago, and at times I walked really good and at times I didn't. But I know even over the last 6 months, I have learned and grown so much in my walk and in my relationship with Christ and my understanding of my failures that I can't go back to the way I used to think or I used to talk or the way I used to live. But if your life looks virtually the same, then you should be concerned. And that's what I'm going to say on that. I'm not condemning anybody, but you just can't tell me that you've accepted Christ and Christ has changed your life, or Christ has come into your life and then just made a bed and stayed in it. No. When you accept that Spirit, and when that Spirit comes into your life, it is impossible for you not to change. If you prioritize anything other than building a relationship with Christ, that's a problem. We live in a culture today that prioritizes their kids more than anything. And people will take that and probably get mad at that because it's like, oh, so what, you shouldn't love your kids? And it's like, I'm not saying that. But there are people who their kids are their idols. And I'm not saying that loosely. Like their kids, it's wild, really. And it's hard to say it's a bad thing, but again, if there's anything over their relationship with Christ, it's a bad thing. And that goes for anything, your spouse, your husband or wife. If you're not going to church because football's on Sunday, that's a problem. You should be concerned, because that should affect your relationship with Christ. That should be on your mind, like, oh, I should probably go. I shouldn't be putting this over. Like if football's that important, that's an idol. And that's a problem. I'm a huge Texas Longhorns fan. Probably is almost as big as it gets. But there was times, because I used to go to church on Saturdays, and there was times where Texas is playing. And I'd miss it, and I'd go to church because I am not putting anything over Christ. And I have failed at times in putting things over Christ. And yet I know that I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to let anything consciously be put over Christ. We're going into a political season. Fortunately and unfortunately, I've missed the last two cycles. Presidential cycles, I should say. I missed 2016 being incarcerated, and I missed the 2020 election being incarcerated. That, I would say, is the American problem right now, is politics. A lot of people prioritize politics. If you prioritize any party or candidate over Christ, that is a problem. You have people who identify as a Democrat or Republican before they identify with being a follower of Christ. That's scary. You have people who think Donald Trump is going to save them and save America and save the world. That's scary. I'm not saying that he's, a bad guy or, whatever. I'm not getting into any of that. But what I'm saying is if you're putting your trust in anything other than Jesus Christ and God the Father, you have a problem. If you, that's a tough one, man, because again, so many people prioritize the empire instead of prioritizing the kingdom. Shout out Lecrae on that one. He mentioned that in his podcast, and I thought that was so fire, because empires fall. If you look at, Rome, if you look at all the great empires that have ever existed, they have all fallen. If you also look, Jesus Christ is still on the throne, and he's not going anywhere, except for coming back to us eventually, and for us eventually. But yeah, if you think any of that is gonna save you or save America, that's a problem. And I beg in this right here, please listen to this. I need to ask, how do you represent Christ around you? That's hard, because you have so many people who say that they are followers of Christ and they don't represent him, especially when you get onto the, the Donald Trump topic, whether you're pro or against. People are gonna, wish him dead. People are gonna think that he's, the savior. There's so many, no matter how you feel, if you're, zealous about either way towards him, that's a problem, but I just ask that you don't be the reason that people don't believe in Jesus. I don't care if you vote Democrat or Republican or Libertarian or whatever it is. Jonathan Pokluda is real good on that when people ask, because you hear a lot, how can you be a Republican and be a Christian? How can you be a Democrat and be a Christian? And they asked Jonathan Pokluda that, and he said, no matter who you vote for, Christians are always wrong, no matter what, because we're human. So there's not a right or wrong answer, because there's things that both parties vote for and stand for that are against God and against the Bible. So no matter who you vote for, there's a chance you're going to be wrong. And that's such a good mindset to have, because it will also put you in the, give you the perspective that God is in control, and that all these people are humans and they're flawed and they aren't the ones who can save us. And I think we should really stop putting so much faith in these people. But that's what's scary, is that people have hope in the government. They have faith in the government instead of having hope and faith in Jesus Christ. That is our number one calling, is to represent Christ, to be ambassadors for Christ. Please, 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 please do not be the reason that someone doesn't believe in God. Don't let heated topics of politics that are all going to fall away, that don't even matter, won't even matter in 10 years from now. Don't be the reason that people don't believe in God. Please. That is the one thing, like, I don't argue really about a lot anyways, but if it's not essential to salvation, then I'm not going to argue about anything, honestly. Like, I really don't want to argue, and the Bible can back that up. It talks about, don't argue about disputed matters. Don't argue about things that hold no bearing, or hold, don't argue over, pointless things. And politics, regardless of how you feel, is pointless, because at the end of the day, I'm not ever going to change anything. Like, our vote, this might be controversial. To me, our vote doesn't even matter. If you don't vote, doesn't matter. Like, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So that's that. But yeah, our number one calling is to represent Christ. And there are two verses in 1 John 2:6 that says that they will know you because you will walk just as he has walked, or that they will know you are in Christ because you will walk just as he has walked. And then John 13:35 says that they will know you by your love. They will know that you are my disciples by your love. And God, the stats show there are no favorable statistics for Christianity right now. People are falling away from the faith, and just mind-blowing numbers. I think they said Gen Z is falling away from the faith by like 1 million people a year. Like, it's sad. And I think a big reason for that is because we have not always been good examples of Christ. And there are the people who are so hateful and so bitter towards unbelievers or towards people they don't agree with, that it is a literal walking contradiction of a Christian. Like, you can't be a Christian and be so hateful and bitter. Like, that is so frustrating, that we have been known to be the hateful, bitter, condemning people. And that's a good topic to talk about, is the fact of what is judging, or what is love, or because society today will tell you that if you don't affirm people's ideologies, if you don't, tolerate people's ideologies, then you don't love them. And that cannot be further from the truth. To me, if you love somebody, if you love the world and you see them on the path to destruction, if you see them on the path to death, if you don't tell them that Jesus loves them, that he died for them, that he shed his blood to make them pure, that he rose from the grave, ascended to the Father, and advocates for us, telling the Father that he is one of mine or she is one of mine. If you don't tell that to people, to me, you can't love them. And that's the most loving thing you can do. If I love people, if you love people, the least we could do is present the only eternal hope to them. And that's hard. Fear will make us not do that. A lack of empathy will make us not do that. Frustration will make us not do that. Again, people will tell people about Donald Trump or Joe Biden. I don't want to, get on one person or the other. They'll tell people about their political heroes before they'll tell people about Jesus. People will wear a Democrat shirt or a Republican shirt before they wear a shirt about Jesus preaching the gospel. And that's sad. And that's honestly, like, thinking about that really hurts my soul, because I don't want anyone to fall away from the faith because of another person. And I know it's gonna happen. And that's a hard truth, because there are people who want to tell people that they're stupid because they vote one way, or that they hate them because they they vote one way, or they call them names because they vote one way. And it's hard. And I mean, I have people I don't agree with. People don't agree with me, and that's cool. But I still love them, and I treat them the same, and I try to build them up and just want to be the example of love and grace and empathy that I know, like I said, I beg for, because I know all the failures that I have, and I know what Christ has brought me out of. And so I just hope that I can be the best example of Christ that I possibly can. And I hope that if I don't do anything else right, ever, that I just at least didn't make somebody not believe in God. If they looked at me and said, oh, because of that, I don't believe in God. Because of how you talk to that person, I don't believe in God. Because of how you talk to me, I don't believe in God. Because of how you, whatever it was. That's my goal. And I want to get into more, and I want to get into a lot of things that really bother me. And I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm not perfect by any means. I still struggle. I still try to walk the best that I can and be the best example of Christ that I can. And I fail because I'm human. And I know that is a lot. And if you're hearing me and you don't believe in God, or you're struggling because of other believers or whatever, just know, it's not Jesus that hurt you. It's not Jesus that did you wrong. It's not Jesus that harmed you in any way. Unfortunately, humans are broken. Humans are hurt. Hurt people hurt people. Humans are flawed and sinful from birth. And I just ask that you don't take it out on Christ for what humanity has failed you in. because I promise you, he loves you and he died for you and he wants to have a relationship with you. So that's it. Again, just please, if you stayed through this whole thing, I beg that you just remember this year. Don't be the reason that someone doesn't believe in God. Don't be the reason that people hate God. Don't be the reason that people fall away from God. We're going into a new year. Let's set some goals. If you don't have a good walk, if you say you're a Christian, but you don't have a true relationship, let's get on that this year. Because saying, oh, I have Jesus, or I have God in my heart, God knows my heart, whatever, like that's not gonna work. I can say pretty confidently that if you don't have a true relationship with him, if you might know about God, because James tells us that even the demons know about God and know God and they tremble at the thought of him. You might know him, but if you were to die today, would he say, I knew you? That's the hard thing to grasp. So seek a relationship with him, because I promise having a good heart, air quotes, because you don't, isn't going to get you to heaven, isn't going to save your life. Let us bring the good news to people this year. Let us preach. And that's not even with words. That's just loving people, serving people. Tell people about Jesus, but do it in a loving way. Don't be out with poster board signs outside of Justin Bieber concerts telling people they're going to hell because they listen to Justin Bieber. I saw that in Dallas, and it was mind-blowing that people are so passionate about people telling people they're going to go to hell instead of loving on them and building them up and wanting to get them to have a relationship with Christ and making a disciple of that person. That's frustrating. Don't be that guy. Don't be the reason. Doing that is going to make people not believe in God. Don't do that. Love people. Build them up. You can rebuke people 100%. Jesus rebuked people. He called us to rebuke people. But don't, do it broad. If you don't know this person, don't condemn them to hell because they listen to different music than you do. Don't do that because they vote different than you. I don't want to get back on that. That's a whole nother rabbit trail. But let us share the good news. And let us show the world truly how Christ is. Be loving, be gracious, be merciful. Obviously, like I said, don't ever affirm and tolerate people in sin because that's what society wants us to do. No. Obviously, make them aware of their flaws and show them to the person who will make them whole and pure and save them from the damnation that is in their future. And last but not least, let us show the world once again how ordinary people can change the world. Thank you guys. I hope that you're still here. I hope you listen to this whole thing. I love y'all. May peace be with y'all, and God bless.